You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Susan Blank. You're listening to America's Web Radio, and this is Detailing Addiction. Today in studio with me, I have David Donaldson from the Atlanta Healing Center, and our special guest today is Mr. Larry Kohn. He is a criminal defense attorney here in Atlanta, and please get a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen or whatever writing utensil you use these days, because we'll give you some contact information about his practice. One of the nice things about your website, Larry, and welcome.
Thank you.
Is that there's a lot of topics there with some very good information just generally about some questions that I know people might have if they're having some interactions with the legal system. So this is some very good information. And also, you and your partners have some years of experience. You're a undergraduate from Emory and then a graduate of Georgia State University Law School, and you've been in practice for, I'm going to mumble, a few years. And
I had hair when I started.
So for those of you who can actually see, you'll know why that's cute. But I'd just like you to tell us a little bit about your practice, your partners, and
Sure.
What you have going on here in Atlanta.
Our firm is Kohn and Yeager, along with William C. Head. We are generally well known throughout Georgia as probably the preeminent criminal defense DUI firm. We've written books. My law partner, William Head, is the foremost author and probably one of the most well-known lawyers within the country for DUI defense. My law partner, Corey Yeager, is a former police officer in both Roswell, along with Cobb County. In addition, when I went to Emory undergrad, I was a religion major, got out of undergraduate, worked as in the finance field, and then went back to law school working full-time for my law partner, William Head, and upon graduation became his partner. So I worked 40 hours a week to put myself through law school, and in addition then became his partner upon graduation. And all we do and what we're known for is criminal defense, or people who get in trouble for alcohol, drug-related, violent crimes, sexual crimes, a myriad of things that you can get in trouble for. That's what we focus on. And that's what we practice. And again, the reason I became acquainted or know Dr. Blank is that I was speaking at a conference probably 3 or 4 years ago to several hundred lawyers, and Dr. Blank spoke after me about the effects of alcohol and drugs on the brain. And I'll never forget this, is that I asked Dr. Blank, I said, I don't understand something. If somebody simply wants to just stop drinking or stop using drugs, why can't they just will themselves away? If you have a strong enough willpower and a strong enough fortitude inside yourself, can't you just stop? She looked at me and she says, well, if you had diabetes or you had a heart disease or cancer, could you just will your problem away? And I thought that was a very intuitive, intelligent answer, and the essence of what she's talking about was that alcoholism, drug addiction, other types of issues like this are brain disorders and brain diseases, the same way that we think of cancer, heart attacks, different types of issues, diabetes, different types of issues with regard to your body. And it really brought something to my mind that, you know, people who come in with these problems need oftentimes more help than simply just going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings or simply going to different types of therapy groups. But there oftentimes is an underlying problem which causes them to use these substances to take a break from reality. And she has had, I can't give enough kudos to Dr. Blank. She has helped a number of my clients, especially those who've had significant, what we would call dual diagnosis disorders, which are a combination of alcohol or drug issues coupled with some mental health problems.
Thank you.
And that combined with different types of counseling, I think that the combination really works. It's really what I would say is, I happen to be Jewish, but it's really the Holy Trinity. If you have the counseling, you have the medical aspect of it, along with the individual wanting to go ahead and commit themselves to following advice and maintaining a lifestyle of sobriety, or a lifestyle of nonviolence, or a lifestyle of trying to commit themselves to not being angry or things of that nature, the combination of those three things will generally lead to a successful result.
I think that's a very, very good description of what it takes for people to be in recovery. And often, unfortunately, there is an event that has happened in someone's life that has finally got their attention and or their family's attention, that something is seriously wrong and people need help. So it's often an opportunity, unfortunately, when people come in contact with the legal system, it is an opportunity for them at that point to make some changes. They have a motivation to do that, and that's always nice when that Holy Trinity comes together and we're able to make an impact. So I appreciate your being here, and thank you for the kind words.
No, thank you. I also want to bring up, going into what you were saying, when you take a look oftentimes that when people come in to see me, there's an expression that I'm sure that that David and you guys use, is that relapse oftentimes is part of recovery. Right. And generally people come to me or have an instance where they have relapsed. They have gone through a period of sobriety, they've gone through a period of really doing a lot of positive in their life, and then something happens. There's a trigger mechanism that I believe that you can maybe speak more about than I can, that causes them to relapse and eventually fall back into a lifestyle that leads to a criminal charge, whether it's a DUI, whether it's a possession of drug charge, whether it's a domestic violence offense that took place after drinking, whether it is some sort of instance that took place, whether at work or whatever it may be. I generally see the results of that have manifested themselves with an arrest, and you guys at that point try and help the person. My job is, in essence, in addition to being a lawyer, I like to be a counselor, and to me I think that's probably one of the most important parts, and I want to relay a story that happened 4 or 5 days ago, where I had a young man who unfortunately was trying to commit suicide through a vehicle. And he was trying, unfortunately, and caused himself some significant problems, ended up getting charged with an offense. And as a result of that, oftentimes you see situations where mental health can cause significant problems, that they get themselves involved with the criminal justice system. And that's where someone who's a good psychiatrist, a counselor, you need to use all three. Because seldom, or hopefully the majority of my cases are someone who's a one and done, made a bad decision, never going to happen again. Right. But very often there are many people who have underlying problems. Correct. DUI may be an exception, because there's oftentimes a lot of people who just simply go out, had too much to drink, because it's a lawful type of behavior. You're allowed to consume alcohol and thereafter drive a car. But very few people come into me after they've been using cocaine for a period of time, because they know the second they use cocaine, that's a problem. Or the second that you walked out of the Target with the candy bar or the potato chip bag in your pocket or the jewelry or whatever it was, you knew you were doing something wrong. So DUI may necessarily be an exception to that, but people find themselves in some pretty crazy situations. And as a result of that, I think that mental health counseling is an incredibly important part of the overall criminal defense practice.
Well, your background and training in theology and religion is very helpful as a therapist, and I think that's an important thing, the ability to listen to what people are telling you and to go beyond the storyline, because often the storyline doesn't necessarily tell you what the real problem is. That's
why I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this. It's not a good thing, but it happens.
Well, and real often the storyline they want to hang on to because they don't want the other truth to come out. And in particular, when they've got some self-doubt or some mental health issues that they've kind of been keeping from the world, having a DUI is a more socially acceptable thing for a lot of them to actually deal with. And you're able to kind of tease that out with your clients in a way that they obviously feel very safe.
Right. The key is that you want to at least, in addition to helping with the criminal justice system, because the problem is oftentimes if I got rid of the charges, and I tell this to people all the time, I said, look, if I was able to wave a magic wand and your case just disappeared, right. The problem is you still wake up tomorrow morning with the same problems that you had before. You're in a marriage where you and your wife are arguing and you're physically fighting with one another. You are utilizing alcohol and drugs as a crutch, or you are engaging in behavior that's physically and mentally and socially destructive to yourself. Okay. Great, I'm looking for the repeat business. I'm happy if you go out and get in trouble again, but realistically that's not what I'm looking for, because if I can try and point you in the right direction, I think that can make the world a little bit of a better spot. But one of the topics we were going to discuss today is the accountability court system here in Georgia and across the nation. And I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to deal with it, because you generally wouldn't in terms of being private practitioners. What happened is probably in the early 2000s and late 1990s, the criminal justice system around the country realized that simply incarcerating people who are utilizing or using drugs or drinking is not accomplishing the result that they're looking for. Because the problem is that, and I tell this to people sometimes, I say, listen, you're charged with very serious offenses, but even if the judge really wanted to light you up and give you every day in jail that they're possible of giving you, the problem is if you live to the expected age in this country of 78, there is not enough jail time. You're going to have to get out of jail, and you're going to live the rest of your life. And the problem is how do you live in the outside world? So judges got tired of seeing the same people come in and out of their courtroom, and they came about the idea that, if we can maybe have people accountable or hold people accountable for their actions, not necessarily be light on them, but basically understand the human failings and the problems that people have in their lives. If we can do that, we can perhaps curtail the rate of recidivism and curtail the rate of people coming back into the criminal justice system. So I believe it started in Florida, at least for DUI courts and drug courts. What happens is that a person would get charged with an offense, and they would say, okay, we're going to dangle a big carrot in front of you. These are for the drug offenses or for certain types of mental health cases. And what they're going to do is the court will say, we're going to put you through a very rigorous, and this is incredibly rigorous, for about 2 years worth of programming, that if you can successfully complete this, we're going to put you in a position where if you do what we tell you to do, we're going to dismiss your case. Now, what does that entail? It will entail drug screens nearly several times a week for a long period of time. It will entail counseling probably at least 2 to 3 times a week. It will entail group meetings. It will entail Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. It's something that it will disrupt your everyday schedule.
Right, every day.
But that's the point of it.
Exactly.
Is that, they say idle hands, or what's it, the product of the devil, or I'm not even sure I'm not even sure the correct quote. But in these particular cases,
the devil's playground?
The devil's playground, or something to that effect. So what I'm suggesting is that these courts were designed with the idea that if you are keeping people busy doing counseling and treatment, which is kind of what you do, and especially what you do, and make them accountable. They have to go to court twice a month. They have to appear in front of a judge. They have status updates. And if they are not doing what they should be doing, they test positive, or they don't do something that they were supposed to do, and they don't attend their meetings, the penalty is immediate. We're going to give you more penalties. We can put you in jail. We can give you sanctions. We can go ahead and curtail your ability to live life in the outside world. And a lot of people have taken to the courts, and these accountability courts. They're very difficult, but the reason that I think that they work is that if people get into the practice of engaging in that type of behavior over a course of at least 2 years, chances are that you're going to be successful for a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're going to learn a little bit more about these accountability courts and the impact that it can have on a person's life. So please stay tuned.
This is Dr. Susan Blank, host of Detailing Addiction on America's Web Radio. Please join us at 4 p.m. on Tuesday afternoons.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Okay, folks, let's have some fun on America's Web Radio. We love idioms, and we want yours. So send it in, go into our homepage, look under the flag at the banner, and click on idioms, and send us your idiom today. Thanks.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
All right, so are we back?
Welcome back. This is Detailing Addiction. This is America's Web Radio, and I'm Dr. Susan Blank. With me in studio is David Donaldson from the Atlanta Healing Center and Mr. Larry Kohn from Kohn and Yeager, defense attorneys here in Atlanta. If you would like more information about their website, please go to www, and this is all spelled out, so GeorgiaCriminalDefense.com, www.GeorgiaCriminalDefense.com. Lots of good information there, lots of good resources for you, so please check out that website. Also, if you need to speak with someone, the number is area code 404-567-5515, 404-567-5515. We'll give you these numbers and information again in our next segment, but please make sure that you make note of them. So before the break, we were talking about accountability courts, particularly DUI courts or drug courts, and you were explaining a little bit about what they are. I was hoping that you might expound a little bit more about what it takes to get into one of them, how that process works, and what that's really going to mean for the individual.
Absolutely. First, when they started, there were a number of judges, and Georgia is a very conservative state. I know people say it's purple, but in many places it's incredibly dark red. Right. And as a result of that, there were a lot of judges who were tough on crime and said, there's no way that I'm going to go for this, feel good,
let them
off the hook type deal. But they saw it was working in other jurisdictions. And about several years ago, the governor sent a letter to to all the Superior Court judges that said, I don't understand something. Georgia has a population much less than Texas, but yet we have 5 times as many people on probation, parole, and in the criminal justice system as Texas. We were the leader in the United States compared to Texas, and Texas is not some very soft on crime jurisdiction. So Georgia, through Governor Deal, who came before Brian Kemp, who's our recent governor, our current governor now, got a lot more active in putting these accountability courts into place. So for certain types of issues, drug possession, it cannot be drug sale, but possession of drugs, DUI, other types of sometimes property crimes and things like that, who are people with mental health issues, veterans. So they have started different types of accountability courts, and really the key, or the numbers that there are, is there's DUI court, there's mental health court for people with mental health addictions or issues that took place before the incident. It's not like you go out and rob a bank and say, whoa, I'm crazy.
Right.
I got a problem. You got to have significant schizophrenia, bipolar, different types of other issues that would lead a court to say this person is in need of services. Then, with regard to DUIs, they said, okay, you've got to have a certain number of DUIs within a certain number of a period of time. You've got to have a history of showing this. The difference between the DUI courts and the other types of courts is in a DUI court, your charge is not stricken from your record. You plead guilty to a DUI, you are sentenced to an accountability DUI court. The benefits of going into that are, first and foremost, is you get treatment. Second, you also have a lesser penalty. There are many jurisdictions that will waive, if not minimize, the amount of jail time that you would have, where in many circumstances you're looking at a sentence where you'd be going to jail for 60 to 90 to 6 months, 60, 90 days to up to 6 months to a year, or a long period of time, where they'll say, okay, you do the DUI court, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you the minimum amount of jail time that you would have underneath the statute, or in some jurisdictions, no jail time. And you know what else we're going to do? We're going to waive your fines. You don't have to pay anything for the fines, but you do need to pay for the treatment. And guess what we're going to do? You're obligated to do certain types of community service, but if you enter into our program, you don't need to provide community service. We're going to count what you're doing towards your community service. And in many cases, and only in DUI cases, your license is supposed to be suspended for a period of up to a year, and you can't get a permit for up to 4 months. But guess what? If you enter into this accountability court, maybe after 30 days, if you're doing a good job, we'll give you a permit to drive. So there are different incentives to entering into a DUI court. The only drawback is unlike other types of crimes, your charge stays with you the entire time. It does not get restricted. It doesn't get expunged. It goes on your record as a conviction. So the reason for that is I believe that the federal government and different types of governmental agencies have come in and said, look, if you want federal money, there is no dismissing the DUI charges. So as a result of that, a lot of people say, well, why do I want to enter into this sort of program? For some people, it's a very good program, and for others, it may not be. If you travel extensively for work, it'd be very difficult to say on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights and Saturday mornings, you're going to need to go to this particular location. Well,
no matter what.
No matter what. And if you miss it, you're subject to jail time. Those are very difficult circumstances to enter into a DUI court program. The drug court program is the very same deal. You would have to live in the county in which the case is taking place, but if you don't, you could enter into a DUI court in the county in which you live. The program or the county can be transferred. So these particular programs, from the drug court to the mental health court to the veterans court, the benefits of it are, guess what? If you successfully complete your program, not only does your case get dismissed, but your record gets restricted, which means that your fingerprints would not be able to be viewed by employers. Your fingerprints are still available to be viewed by law enforcement and judicial agencies, and prosecutors can see it. But you want to go apply for that job at Home Depot, they're not going to see if you successfully complete the program, they do not see your drug arrest, or they don't see the fact that you broke into a car or something of that nature and were charged with a crime. So as a result, there are huge benefits oftentimes for running the programs. But the success rate of these programs is terrific for those who can complete it. Right. Most people have a hard time completing it, but a lot of the judges and the people who are doing this are trained to understand that if you're entering into this program, you already have a problem to begin with, so it's not the easiest thing in the world to complete, and as a result, they are oftentimes willing to work with people who have problems to a certain degree, but it's a tough love attitude. I mean, there's not a lot of BS or a lot of room for problems in these programs, but I think that they're very beneficial and they help the community, and the recidivism rate is incredibly low. Recidivism meaning the people who come back and reoffend. So the reoffending rate for people who go through these programs is very low. And they exist all throughout the United States of America. And what's really unique is that the judges who previously were so against these programs are now oftentimes the biggest proponents of these programs. And that's pretty interesting. As was the governor. Governor Deal was a former Superior Court judge from Hall County. A lot of people don't know that. Hall and Dawson County. So he sentenced a number of people who were charged with crimes, and he was tired of seeing the same people come through the court. His son is the drug court judge up in the Hall County area, and he runs a terrific program up there. But every county, major metro Atlanta County has it. Most, if not all, many state courts throughout Georgia have the DUI court program, and most counties or many counties have a drug court program. And if not, you can be transferred into a county in which you live. But they're very beneficial, but they're not easy to go through. And if you want to explain oftentimes why it's so hard, because you have people, you can explain that you have people who are simply wanting to go through the motions. And if you just want to talk what that means.
And that's a hard thing, where the individual often doesn't believe that they have a problem and that they are just trying to get people off their back. Sometimes that's enough. Do it long enough, and things do get better. Often they're so ill in their disease that they need detox, they may need additional help, they may need medication-assisted recovery. There may be some additional factors that complicate they're being able to be successful. Often women will have child care issues, folks will have transportation problems. Finances can be a problem. You've got to be able to pay the fines, for the probation, you've got to be able to pay for the drug screens. So sometimes there are mitigating circumstances that the person has above and beyond their attitude or their willingness, but generally it's I don't believe this is really going to happen. I've lived my life manipulating people. People like me. I can be charming. I can tell you what I think you want to hear. They don't think it's going to be really serious. And then the first time they're late, the first time they decide to go get drunk on the weekend and think they're going to be fine with their drug test, they very quickly realize the judges aren't kidding. The judges will be their biggest cheerleader, which is an interesting thing to talk to people as they go through this process and see the kinds of feelings they begin to have towards the judge, who may have become supportive of them over time as they've seen them trying. But they learn pretty quickly, this is not your mama who's going to listen to your stories and get you off. This is not, we're not fooling, and this is really serious. And that immediate consequence, I think, is so helpful, because many of these folks, unfortunately, if they have the disease of addiction, have often had enablers in their life who have made it easier, I'm not going to say easy, but easier for them to stay active in their disease, actively using drugs or alcohol. And people have helped them get out of trouble at school, help them get out of trouble with the neighbors, with their dad, with however it works. They think that's still going to happen for them. Guess what? It doesn't happen for them. So it's a rude awakening, and some people are just not able to do it.
It's a big surprise for the family members who have been able to successfully get them out of things over the years. And the first time that their young adult messes up and ends up going into jail for 3 days and they can't get him out is an eye-opener for many, many parents.
Right. I've experienced just so many different types of cases, but one that comes to mind, which I think is interesting, is that people oftentimes don't think that they have a problem with alcohol or drugs. And I'm saying to myself, I said, okay, and they come into my office, I said, I don't understand something. You knew that you were going to be tested, okay? Meaning that
right.
You're on probation, you go in once a month to take a drug screen, you knew that you were going to be tested, but yet you still smoked marijuana knowing that you were going to be tested. To me, that's a huge problem, that if you knew that you were going to have people over to your house for a party, and you said, I'm not cleaning up my house, and your house is a complete dump and a complete sty, and it's messy, it makes zero sense. You would, it's like it's not like this was some surprise that people just came over and the house was a mess. You invited everybody over, and the same thing happens with alcohol or drugs, and you see them continually get into these same problems over and over again.
It is a surprise for families when police knock on the door to do a quick search.
Search. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about accountability courts and how they can be helpful. Please stay tuned.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
This is Daryl Pullis inviting you to listen to America's Homegrown Veggie Show right here every Saturday morning at 10 Eastern Time. Great guests, great tips, and valuable information about growing your own vegetables, fruits, and herbs.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back to Detailing Addiction. I'm Dr. Susan Blank, and this is America's Web Radio. Today, David Donaldson and I are visiting with our special guest, Mr. Larry Kohn from Kohn and Yeager Defense Counsel here in Atlanta. If you would like to check out their website, and I do suggest that you do, go to www.georgiacriminaldefense.com. That's georgiacriminaldefense.com, or you can reach them directly at area code 404-567-5515, 404-567-5515. So we've been talking about accountability courts and how they can be helpful for people, but to your point, sometimes people have a hard time taking advantage of them. And I know this must be frustrating for you when you go to all the work to get a judge and the prosecutor and everybody on board to allow someone to have an opportunity to make some changes in their life, and then things don't quite work out that way.
I just recently had a case where I had a client who racked up several DUI charges within a 6-month period, like at least 4. Never been in trouble for anything within a short period of time, and the charge was potentially going to be a felony. We were able to get some of the charges dismissed and dropped against her. One of the conditions was that she would have to enter into a treatment and accountability court and complete it. And one of the problems is that within the first meeting that she went, there was some sort of, basically, not disagreement, but the best way I can say it is that there was some sort of discrepancy, that she didn't do what she was supposed to do, or there was some sort of misunderstanding. And I tell people, when you go to these courts, it's kind of like your relationship with your wife. Whether it's your fault or not, guess whose fault it is? It's your fault. So in this particular circumstance, I told my client, and I tell this to my clients oftentimes, that you don't get a second chance at a first impression. So when you go to this court, I said, you need to be on your best behavior, and you need to succeed, and you need to go ahead and take advantage of it. And the judges will be the first to tell you get out of it what you put into it. And there are other clients I have that I say, look, don't even bother going to the court. You're going to get more jail time if you do the court, then just do the jail time right now. Go in there, let's take the jail time, let's get it over with, and move on with your life. But doing the court, unfortunately, to many people, they continually get sanctioned because they cannot adhere to a particular schedule. But those who have successfully completed it many would find it rewarding, but there are also many that would say, you know what, it was a little bit overkill, I get it, and I understand that. Oftentimes there are cases that I do, and my law partner, William Head and Corey Yeager, what we will do in many circumstances is that sometimes there are clients that we have that are unable to complete the DUI court program or a drug court program as it is written. When I have these cases, what I can do is I will use people like Dr. Blank and David. I will use other types of alcohol and drug counselors and treatment providers to come up with a commensurate type of program. I've had circumstances where I have come up with a program and I say to the court, for example, there are certain types of drugs or medications that you take which will not allow you to get into the program. For example, if you take certain types of SSRI inhibitors, or you take Xanax, or you take different types of amphetamine type drugs, they can't distinguish those types of drugs in a drug screen. And as a result of that, you can go get tested, and the people who are running the accountability court think, my goodness, this person's using methamphetamine.
Right.
But you're not, and they can't tell. So they say, you know what, this is on the list of drugs, you can't take it. But it doesn't make sense where if you've had somebody who for 20 years or 15 years has had a particular drug that the doctor has prescribed, I don't think it would be beneficial to say, hey, let's just shake it up and try something else so they get into this drug court or DUI court program. So in some of these circumstances, what I've done is that I have come up with my own program, and I've successfully done that in several jurisdictions throughout Georgia many times, where I will bring in the counselors to explain. First thing is, I don't thumb my nose at your program. I think it's a good program.
Right.
But in this particular circumstance, and you know it's a good program because I've put people in your program. So it's not like the judge can say, oh, Kohn never puts people in our program. I'll say, look, you've got my clients in your program, but in this particular case, this man is a traveling salesman. It will not work. But I'll tell you what will work is, why don't we put a monitor on his ankle, or some sort of monitor, or he'll carry with him a device that he can breathe into. You're concerned about him not drinking? I'll tell you what. Let's carry this thing with him wherever he goes. You can call him whenever you want. He'll breathe into it. Shows he's got no alcohol in his system. Great. We've accomplished your first part. Well, you guys have meetings on Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday mornings or Sunday or whatever it is. Guess what? He's on the road. That's not going to work. Or he's a school teacher, and I did this before. You're asking him to come into test for alcohol and drugs every morning between 7 and 9 a.m. Well, guess what? He needs to be in the parking lot of his school at 10 to 7. He won't make it. Further, you need this school teacher to come to DUI court or drug court programming at 3 o'clock on a Monday. How is that going to go over when he has a class? It won't. So here's what needs to happen. Your program does work well. I'm not critiquing it. I think it's a great program. But in this particular case, he will benefit from your program, but he will not benefit from the way your program, in terms of the time commitment, it does not work. And as a result, we've got to make two choices. He can either give up his job, and then he'd be able to complete your program, but your program is designed that you have to work, or you have to be seeking employment or enrolled in school in order to be in the program. Generally, there may be some very minor exceptions, but for the most part, that's what they want. And as a result, if we're going to take away the one thing that really matters the most to this particular person, his job, his livelihood, or her job or her livelihood, just so that they can complete your program, you're really not giving them what it's like to live in the real world. Because it's kind of like, I tell my daughter loves the show The Bachelor. She watches it all the time. And I said, well, who wouldn't enjoy going to an island, having an exotic getaway, and hearing a fabulous band play while you're being served a great dinner by Wolfgang Puck? Who wouldn't like that? But guess what? That's not the real world.
Right.
So the issues that we have in these particular cases is that we want to have, a scenario that, to me, is that when they are done with your program, how's life going to be? They're still going to have the same stressors, and they're still going to have the same issues. And how's that going to play into effect? So the accountability courts are great in many circumstances, and they're not great in other circumstances. And it just depends upon your particular circumstance to make a decision about whether it works for you. What I'd also like to bring up, and I don't know if you guys, one of the things that I've been doing recently with the clients I've sent to Dr. Blank is, if you can tell me more about the brain mapping that you do for people, because I have clients oftentimes who come to me. I've had from all walks of life, from physicians to business people to, teachers, to anybody that you can possibly think of that I've sent to Dr. Blank, and I've sent to other different types of alcohol and drug counseling. But one thing that I find unique about your practice, and I'd like to be a little more educated about, is the brain mapping program that you use, because my understanding is that just by looking at the details of someone's brain without even really talking to them, you have a great insight into who they are and how they work.
It's very interesting that as psychiatrists over the years, we don't actually look at the organ we treat, which has always struck me as being weird. But we know that from electrical activity of the brain, just like electrical activity of the heart, the cardiologist can tell if I've had a heart attack, if there's something unfortunate about how my heart is beating. We can do a quantitative EEG, and we can look at that person's brain. We have a number of databases that we then compare it to. So we look at age-matched norms, because women's brains and men's brains are actually different. People don't like that. People's brains don't fully develop until the mid to late 20s. So we have to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. How does your brain compare with somebody else your age? The second thing, we can look at known psychiatric disorders. So people will come in sometimes and they'll be describing anxiety, the racing heart, the pressure in their chest, they can't swallow, butterflies in their stomach. Sometimes that's genetically inherited anxiety that we see very fast waves, 20 to 30 beats per second. That's treated one way, but often we'll see that it is actually in a slower brainwave pattern that is consistent with stress and cortisol related problems. And so it's a stress response. Both of them sound the same. They manifest themselves similarly. That didn't come out right, for the person, but their treatment is very different. And the question about ADD. So lots of people are diagnosed with ADD, far more than actually have it, since it's really a pretty rare disorder. So a lot of our patients have come in with a diagnosis of ADD, and really only 4% of the population actually has it. So we can look at their brain map and we can determine, do they actually have ADD? Then we can look at their medication and see whether it makes sense for them to continue on a stimulant that might be contraindicated for accountability court. We can look and see the psychiatric illnesses. We can also run a discriminant to look at known head injury patterns. Many of our patients have had head injuries, either as children or through accidents or illnesses. Sometimes when they're under the influence, there are falls, they get in fights. Lots of our folks will have head injuries. And then we also have a fourth one that we look at the brain patterns of people who are peak performers, because a lot of our patients are professional folks or students, and we want to see how do they compare to normal population in terms of how their brain works versus peak performers, people who are at the top of the game, leaders of industry, professionals, athletes, performers. So this gives them some additional help, and then we can determine medication choices. We can determine other kinds of activities that might be helpful including neurofeedback. Because again, a lot of my patients may have anxiety, but I can't give them Xanax because they would take the whole bottle before they got to the parking lot. So we still have to help them with their anxiety, but we have to find ways that don't complicate the treatment of their disease of addiction too. So it gives me a lot of insight. It's also often validating for the person to be able to see, yeah, this looks really bad, but I'm not making this up. This is my internal life. This is how my thinking, my behavior has been feeling for me, and now my family can see it here in this map and can understand me a little bit better. So I think it's a very helpful methodology. Is it everything? No, but it is an important something, and a lot of our patients get a lot out of it.
Part of what's really interesting in that last test that they go through is that they actually get to look at a lot of their own issues and the things that they've had struggles with, and looking at the brain map, we can let them know this is a struggle you're having because of the way your brain is processing, or this is not really connected to your brain, this is more of a social thing, and that's something that you'll work on in the groups. And it gives some direction and some guidance of how to begin working on
right.
that.
For both the treatment team and for our neurofeedback specialist, or for me in terms of figuring out the type of medication that might be more helpful for them. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'd really like to focus in on mental health courts, so please stay tuned.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back. This is Detailing Addiction on America's Web Radio. I'm Dr. Susan Blank, and in studio with me today is David Donaldson from the Atlanta Healing Center and Mr. Larry Kohn from Kohn and Yeager, attorneys at law. Their contact information, so please make sure you've got this, is www.georgia, and Georgia is spelled out, not abbreviated, georgiacriminaldefense.com. georgiacriminaldefense.com, and their phone number is 404-567-5515, 404-567-5515, and it looks like they can call that 24/7. Is that correct?
Yes, we have people answering the phone all times, day or night, and we will call you back on our cell phones. We'll call you back whenever it works out, as soon as possible. But
because usually these things don't happen 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
But oftentimes as a lawyer, I'm not allowed to go bond somebody out of jail.
Correct.
I can give advice or talk to you about what to happen, but most people call us after they've already bonded out of jail. I want to bring up something that we were kind of talking about just briefly. Is I have a lot of people come into me with mental health problems, and I say oftentimes some of them can be helped and some of them can't. The mental health problems that come to me that I think can be helped are the ones that recognize that they have a mental health problem.
Right.
The difficult cases are the ones that do not recognize that they have mental health problems. I have had children at odds with their parents, and during the course of an intervention, the child punched one of the relatives, which caused a problem, which caused a whole, ensuing criminal case. And the problem with that is that when you have someone who who loves you recognizes that you have a problem, generally sometimes you got to look inward and say, hey, it's me, it's not you. And that's a really difficult part, because oftentimes the people who have these mental health problems think that the world is out to get them, that they want them either to be medicated. And we were talking before, without going into any details on names, about oftentimes clients who do not want to take their medication, because I guess it interferes with their brain functioning and it doesn't give them the high highs and low lows. It just kind of allows them to plod through.
Or they're afraid, from a paranoid standpoint, that their doctor is trying to hurt them, that their mom is trying to hurt them when they're giving them, or the nurse or whomever. Mm-hmm. So it becomes part of their paranoid delusions that the medicine itself is there to hurt them, and part of the whole conspiracy to hurt them. So that makes it very difficult.
We're treating two different parts of the brain. The addiction center is the pleasure pain center, and their brains are still connected, and they can still sort of see what's going on, even though they're not following with what their rational thoughts are telling them, because the pleasure pain is so rewarding. for the schizophrenic or the confused person, their actual thinking, decision-making part of the brain is either giving them false information, making them say that nobody's trustworthy, or they're trying to poison me, or they're trying to take me over. So they're getting the wrong information from the part of the brain that thinks. And so it's so difficult. Once upon a time, you could just lock somebody up and give them the meds and keep them for 30 days and then put them into a care home where they would monitor them. But we've closed a lot of the central hospitals, and we don't have those kind of resources the way we once did.
Right. The hard part is I tell this a lot to parents. I say, look, when your kid turns 18, if he wants to go deal blackjack in Vegas, or say I'm going out to Bolivia and I'm going to be a farmer, guess what? Have at it. There's nothing you can do about it because they're an adult. Even though they may be living at your house and you may still think of them as your child, they're legally an adult. And to me, oftentimes, it's a very difficult situation where I tell parents who come to me when their kid's 15, 16, 17, that's when we need to really oftentimes deal with some of these issues. And I'm in juvenile court quite a bit on cases where the emphasis in juvenile court is about rehabilitation rather than punishment. Because the thought is that we can go ahead and rehabilitate these people, make them gainful members of society. Mm-hmm. And that's really my job as a criminal defense lawyer, is that I oftentimes have to explain to a prosecutor, a judge, or a victim. And a good example of this is I was representing a man who had an IQ of 70. Intellectually disabled in this country, or actually in this country, or we used to call it mentally retarded, was, I guess, just above 70, or right around 70, 71. And his IQ was just at the line. And he was going around to places and he was taking things. He was going to a stand and he was taking different types of items, but I guess he was doing it to ingratiate himself, because the items that he took, he would bring to the people that he worked with, and he would bring them fruit and all sorts of things like that, because he was trying to make friends. The problem was the man who owned the fruit stand was not so happy about this. And this was, and the family reported when they posted something on the Facebook, the family reported. Now, the problem when you have a case like this is, unfortunately, you're not aware of what somebody else has gone through in their life and what has gone on, and you can't walk in another person's shoes. Mm-hmm. As a criminal defense lawyer, one of the things that I try and do is that I try and allow people, if only for a minute, to see things the way that things were going in my client's mind and what was happening. And it may not seem rational to us about why my client did X, Y, and Z and why he would take fruit and how could this person steal. But if you understand what's going on for this person, I'm not asking the case should be dismissed or we should be forgiven. But oftentimes, to give somebody a criminal record or to ruin their life, okay, great, congratulations. And I'll never forget this. I tried a case in a county where I had a client who was a commercial trucker. And I said to the prosecutor, I said, I'll tell you what, my understanding is that if I lose, my client's going to go to jail. I'll tell you right now, my client will do 30 days in jail. But he needs to keep his job. My client had never been in trouble for anything before. He got a DUI in his own personal vehicle. And we tried the case, and I lost. It was a horrible case. I really had no chance of winning it, but I tried it because, my client's career and his livelihood was on the line. And at the end of the case, the judge said, Mr. Kohn, you can come up here anytime you want and try a case with me. He says, I'm not going to punish your client. He says, I know why you did it. And I said to the prosecutor, congratulations. You won. You won. But in essence, I said, but now what? I said, now he's out of a job. I'm not saying that he should have dismissed the case, but if we had just simply amended a charge to a different type of disposition, given him a harder penalty than you would have ever given him. Right. And I think that there's a number of prosecutors and people who understand that on certain types of offenses and certain types of things that, as a prosecutor, your role is oftentimes to do justice. And justice, right, should be blind, but in essence, justice is not blind, because it's not justice if someone's life is going to be ruined over a bad decision, or if the family members oftentimes don't understand, if the victim of a crime is coming into the prosecutor and saying, you know what, my husband hit me and it was awful. Mm-hmm. He has gone through counseling, he has gone through treatment. Why can't we do something where we've accomplished what we wanted? I'm not looking to have him lose his career or lose his job or be in a position where he's unable to find work. I said, I think that the damage has been done and the penalty's been paid. I'm okay with this. Why do you have to get involved? And I always tell them, look, it's not you versus your husband. It's the state of Georgia versus your husband. Right. And that's a very important thing that people don't realize or they lose sight of. It's not Walmart versus you when you stole the pack of chewing gum, it's the state of Georgia versus you. And in most of these cases, my job or the job of a criminal defense lawyer is to humanize your client and try and make the prosecutor understand or a judge understand, look, I'm not minimizing the conduct, but here's what was going on that particular occasion. Such and such had just lost his job. In addition, his mother had passed away a week before. And now you understand why he went out that night, was drowning his sorrows as a result of alcohol. He just found out that his wife got found had stage 4 breast cancer. Does it excuse the conduct? No. But take a look at what was going on with the background behind it to understand that this was someone who, here you are, he's 60 years old. How does somebody who's 60 years old, who's never been in trouble for anything, walk into Dillard's, put a couple tubes of makeup in their pocket, and walk out? Okay, when people come to me, and oftentimes it's very often menopausal women are right in the point of menopause, I'm like, look, you got other things that are going on that are causing changes in your brain, behavior, anxiety, depression. And very often it's like the bell goes off. She goes, how did you know? I said, because you're not a thief. Okay? I said, all of a sudden at 60, you wake up in the morning and say, you know what? I think I'm going to go to Target. I really, even though I've got a bank account, which I could afford whatever I want in the Target store, I think I need that, that bag of, that bag of Cheetos. I'm not going to scan that on purpose. No, the point I'm making is that people oftentimes have other issues going on in their lives.
Correct.
That manifest themselves within the criminal justice system. And you see that, and you see that.
So when prosecutors see you coming, are they receptive to these conversations? Or are they like, oh, I'm going to turn a corner and...
Well, some do, and oftentimes I just don't get it. I'm like, okay, I mean, fair enough, but those are the people who oftentimes don't get it, or either they're so jaded, or they're just they're either career prosecutors, or they haven't lived any life. They've never encountered or had a child who had problems, or encountered a family member who had issues, or lived, and you know what? That's great. If we could all live to such a high standard, the world would be a wonderful place, and that would be great. And I would love it to be that way, but that's just not the world that we live in. I just think that we are human. God put us on this earth. Some of us have strengths in some areas, and some of us have weakness in some areas. And as far as I can tell, the important thing that we need to do is that we need to go ahead and put people in a position, and I think that's one of the reasons I like you guys so much, is that you try and help people. And that's why I love what I do, is that in addition to trying to help people, in addition to their crimes, if we can point them in the right direction and better their lives, I think the world will be a better spot.
We thank you so much for being with us today. We thank all of our listeners, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Detailing Addiction.
Thank you.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information